There we have Bureau of Philippine Standards under the Department of Trade and Industry or DTI. It is the national standard body of the Philippines that develops, promulgates, implements, and promotes standardization activities in the Philippines, and to ensure the manufacture, production, and distribution of quality products for the protection of the consumer. The Bureau was created in June 1964 through Republic Act 4109, known as the Standard Law. Its mandate declares that it is the duty of the state to develop and provide safety and quality standards for consumer products, including performance or use-oriented standards, codes of practice, and methods of tests. This body formulated national standards, development policies in consultation with relevant government agencies and other stakeholders. Philippine national standards are then formulated for consumer protection and trade facilitation through the conduct of regular review of these standards for possible revision or updating to align with developments in trade and latest technology. The Philippine National Standards or PNS on Principles and Guidelines for National Control System was developed by the Bureau of Agriculture and Fisheries Standards with the guidance of the Technical Working Group. The focus of the Philippine National Standards on Principles and Guidelines for National Food Control System is on the production, storage, transport, handling, and sale of foods within a national border. Philippine National Standards on Principles and Guidelines for National Food Control System, also known as the PNS 293 series of 2020, is intended to provide practical guidance to assist the national government and their responsible competent authority in the design, development, operation, evaluation, and improvement of the national food control system. It highlights the key principles and core elements of an efficient and effective food control system. The objective of a national food control system is to protect the health of consumers and ensure fair practices in the food trade. The national food control system should be based on the following 13 principles. The first one is the protection of consumers.
National food control system should be designed, implemented, and maintained with the primary goal to protect consumers.
Number two, the whole food chain approach.
National food control system should cover the entire food chain from primary production to consumption.
Number three, transparency.
Transparency considerations apply to all participants in the food chain, and this can be achieved through clear documentation and communication.
Number four, roles and responsibilities.
All participants in a national food control system should have specific roles and responsibilities clearly defined. Food business operators have the responsibility for managing the food safety of their products and for complying with the requirements relating to those aspects of food under their control. The national government has the responsibility to establish and maintain up-to-date legal requirements. Consumers have a role in managing food safety risks under their control. Academics and scientific institutions have a role in contributing to a national food control system, as they are a source of expertise to support the risk-based and scientific foundation of such a system.
Number five, consistency and impartiality.
The competent authority and all participants acting in official functions should be free of improper or undue influence or conflict of interest.
Number 6, risk-based, science-based, and evidence-based decision making.
A competent authority should make decisions based on scientific information, evidence, and/or risk analysis principles.
Number 7, cooperation and coordination between multiple competent authorities.
The competent authorities within a national food control system should operate in a cooperative and coordinated manner within clearly assigned roles and responsibilities for the most effective use of resources in order to minimize duplication and/or gaps and to facilitate information exchange.
Number 8, preventive measures.
National food control system should encompass the core elements of prevention, intervention, and response to prevent and when necessary to respond to food safety incidents.
Number 9, self-assessment and review procedures.
National food control system should possess the capacity and capability to undergo continuous improvement and include mechanisms to evaluate whether the system is able to achieve its objectives.
Number 10, recognition of other systems including the equivalences.
Competent authorities should recognize that food control systems or their components, although designed and structured differently, may be capable of meeting the same objectives.
Number 11, the legal foundation.
The national government should have in place fundamental legal structures to enable the establishment of food laws and competent authorities so that they can develop, establish, implement, maintain, and enforce a national food control system.
Number 12, the harmonization.
When designing and applying a food control system, the competent authority shall adopt international standards such as ASEAN and Codex standards, recommendations, and guidelines whenever appropriate as elements of their national food control system to protect the health of consumers and ensure fair practices in the food trade.
And the last, number 13, the resources.
A national food control system should have sufficient resources primarily from the national government to enable it to meet the system's objectives.
The responsible competent authority has a pivotal role in the national food control system. The following roles of the responsible competent authorities are to A. Provide leadership and coordination for the national food control system. B. Design, develop, operate, evaluate, and improve the national food control system. C. Establish, implement, and enforce science and risk-based regulatory requirements that encourage and promote positive food safety outcomes. D. Establish, implement, and enforce regulatory requirements supporting fair practices in food trade. E. Establish and maintain arrangements with supporting organizations such as officially recognized inspection, audit, certification, and accreditation bodies. F. Advance and foster knowledge, science, research, and education regarding food safety. G. Engage with stakeholders to ensure transparency and to obtain their views. And H. Where appropriate, establish and maintain arrangements with other countries such as cooperation programs, equivalence agreement, etc.
The next guideline for the national food control system is the framework for the design and operation. The design and implementation of a national food control system should follow a logical and transparent process. This includes the consistent application of a systematic framework. In developing a national food control system, the competent authority, in consultation with stakeholders, should adopt this framework that reflects the principles of a national food control system. The first one is a policy setting.
Policy setting is the process by which the goals and objectives for the national food control system are established by the national government. It includes the identification and clear articulation of expected outcomes.
Once policy goals and desired outcomes for the national food control system are established, they should be clearly articulated and described. in order to effectively guide subsequent actions. In order to reflect national policies and strategies, legislation should, among other things,
A. Frame the structure of the national food control system and its goals and objectives. B. Provide clarity on the roles and responsibilities of participants in the national food control system. C. Set out the overarching objectives of the national food control system. D. Clearly define obligations for food business operators and other participants in the food chain to establish and monitor controls. And E. Clearly define obligations on food business to place only safe food on the market and apply fair practices in trade.
the legislation should provide the responsible competent authority with the range of powers and mechanisms sufficient to manage and operate the national food control system. Second one in the framework is a system design. In designing a national food control system, the national government should ensure the main objectives as defined in the policy, as well as how to incorporate the principles.
The design of a food control system should take into account the following elements. A. Existing or necessary regulatory and legislative frameworks like laws, regulations, and guidelines. B. How the national food control system relates to national and international standards, including import and export system requirements. C. The recognition of other food control systems. D. The level and method of oversight, including control programs from primary production through manufacturing to transportation and distribution. E. How issues and risks are managed. F. Enforcement and compliance programs. G. Coordination and communication between authorities with control responsibilities in different parts of the chain and with the public health authorities. H. Clearly defined roles and responsibilities. I. Access to adequate laboratory capacity and capability. J. Staff competence and training. K. The resources needed to meet the objectives of the national food control system, their allocation and how the system is to be found. L. Surveillance, investigation, emergency preparedness and response to foodborne and food-related illnesses. M. Assessment and evaluation. N. Stakeholder engagement. O. International communication and harmonization. And P. Periodic review and continuous improvement. An appropriate system design should consider a range of factors including product risks, current scientific information, industry-based controls, and system review findings.
The next one in the framework is the implementation. Following the design or modification of the national food control system, the responsible competent authority should prepare an implementation plan, including the sequence for different elements of design, suitable with their preparedness and capability. This will require engagement analysis by a variety of experts, disciplines, and all stakeholders.
The responsible competent authorities plan may include A. Priorities and timeframes for implementation. B. Deliverables. C. Responsibilities for implementation. D. Allocation of resources for personnel and infrastructure. E. Training and operation manuals. And F. Stakeholder engagement. Programs and training manuals shall be developed and maintained to ensure a consistent application of requirements.
A national food control system should be supported by training programs designed to ensure that all appointed officers, such as inspectors, auditors, or assessors, and analysts and other individuals carrying out technical and professional duties, receive the training required to adequately perform their work assignments and maintain the professional competence and ensure consistent application of requirements. The responsible competent authority should ensure that sufficient guidance, training, and awareness programs targeted at all relevant stakeholders are in place to facilitate effective notification of suspect cases of foodborne related illnesses for health hazards detected in the food chain. Food business operators should also be encouraged to develop or access training and education programs relevant to their activities and responsibilities. Such programs can include formal education and or academic studies, industry training or organization courses, or individual business staff's training. Responsible, competent authorities should utilize laboratories authorized or accredited under officially recognized programs to ensure that adequate quality control are in place to ensure the reliability of test results. They should also ensure that authorized or accredited laboratories participate in regular proficiency testing. Such testing may be organized nationally or internationally, and reference laboratory may have a role in organizing proficiency testing programs. The responsible competent authority should implement a range of food control activities, including inspections, audits, verification, and surveillance to ensure that food business operators meet their responsibilities and is in compliance with the requirements. And the last one in the framework is the monitoring and system review. The effectiveness and appropriateness of the national food control system should be regularly assessed against the objective of the system, effectiveness of control programs, as well as against legislative and other regulatory requirements. Criteria for assessment should be established, clearly defined, and documented, and may also include cost, benefits, and efficiency. Control programs should be subject to ongoing monitoring to ensure that its objectives are being achieved at all stages of the food chain, including production, manufacture, importation, processing, storage, transportation, distribution, and trade.
The assessment of control programs should cover issues such as A. Effectiveness of control procedures, B. Suitability in achieving objectives, C. Whether the program has covered relevant stages in the production chain, D. Consideration of emerging trends.
The national food control system should be regularly reviewed to contribute to the system's improvement in response to, for example, national program data, non-compliance, food safety incidents, scientific researches, and history of conformance, external and reviews of the system and changes a product or the production environment. Such reviews may take place at the level of system and or program design or implementation as appropriate.
The review of food-related non-compliances or incidents is an opportunity to learn which can be used as a feedback loop for the planning process by the responsibly competent authority. These opportunities should be used to engage in continuous improvements.
The responsible competent authorities should ensure that the response system in regards to food safety and relevant events is effective with clear communication between responsible competent authorities, food business operators, and consumers. These systems should be periodically tested to ensure that communication and response systems work effectively.
Responsible competent authorities should periodically review their surveillance systems with respect to their capacity to recognize the emergencies rapidly. Elements of the review may include A. Links between the symptomatic foodborne illness surveillance systems and the food monitoring system. B. Data on the symptoms and effects of chronic exposure to foodborne contamination. C. Systems to allow rapid detection of contamination incidents to ensure prompt public alerts. And links with the veterinary public health sector.
A responsible competent authority should utilize information gained from the surveillance of foodborne illness as a risk management tool in the operation of their food control systems. Food control, illness, and outbreak information should be used to inform the risk analysis activities of responsible competent authorities. The results of the evaluations, including the results of self-assessment and audits, should also be taken into account for further improvement of the system, and corrective action should be taken into account as appropriate. Any review and continuous improvement of the national food control system should be communicated effectively and efficiently to ensure that clear exchange of information and engagement between all stakeholders in the national food control system occurs. Responsible, competent authorities should consider the results of monitoring and review processes and take preventive or corrective action or improve the system as appropriate.